Good evening. I stand before you today not just to speak, but to declare, to prophesy, and to ignite your spirit with a truth that is shaking the heavens and breaking chains right now. Miracles are not a thing of the past. They are happening right now. God is moving, and the doors he is opening in this season cannot be shut by any man. Somebody shout, I believe it. You see, when God opens a door, he doesn't need permission from your past. He doesn't check in with your enemies or ask for approval from your circumstances. When God speaks, heaven and earth respond, and right now I feel in my spirit that doors are swinging wide open for those who have the faith to step through. Let me tell you something. The enemy has tried to keep you bound, try to keep you locked in fear and doubt. But I came to tell you tonight, your miracle is in motion. Your breakthrough is already knocking at the door. The only thing God requires is your trust, your obedience, and your boldness to step forward. I want to give you 8 key points to anchor your spirit as you walk through these divine doors. Recognize the season. Family, listen to me closely. There is something powerful about understanding the timing of God. When a farmer plants a seed, he doesn't expect to see a harvest the next day. He understands the seasons. He knows there's a time to sow and a time to reap. Likewise, when God begins to move in your life, you must recognize the shift in the atmosphere. When the ground starts trembling and the heavens start stirring, that's not a coincidence. That's a divine moment, but too often we miss it because we're looking at our past failures or doubting our worth. You've got to wake up in the spirit and say, Lord, open my eyes so I can see the doors you are unlocking for me. Don't be like the Israelites who wandered in the wilderness for 40 years because they couldn't recognize the season of their deliverance. Don't let fear, doubt, or the opinions of others blind you to the opportunities that are right in front of you. I'm reminded of a woman who had been praying for a new job. She felt stuck, overlooked, and undervalued. But one day her friend told her about an opening in a company she had never considered. Fear almost held her back. She thought, I'm not qualified. I'm not ready. But something in her spirit said, this is your season. She stepped out in faith, applied, and not only got the job, but was promoted within months. Why? Because she recognized the season God was moving her into and acted on it. Some of you have been praying for breakthrough, but when the door cracks open, you hesitate. You start reasoning, maybe this isn't the right time. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I should wait. But I came to tell you tonight, the enemy wants to keep you in a cycle of delay and doubt. When God opens a door, it won't always make sense to your natural mind. It won't always come in the package you expected, but you got to move when the Spirit says move. Think about Peter when Jesus told him to step out of the boat and walk on water. Peter didn't have time to analyze the physics of it. He didn't consult with the other disciples. He simply obeyed and walked. And as long as he kept his eyes on Jesus, he did the impossible. But the moment he doubted, he began to sink. Fear is a prison. It is a cage that locks you away from the blessings that God has already set before you. Some of you are standing at the doorway of your miracle, but you won't step forward because fear has its hands wrapped around your ankles. Fear whispers lies in your ears, telling you you're not ready, you're not worthy, you're not capable. But I came to tell you today, fear is a liar. Fear is a deceiver. Fear is a thief that comes to rob you of your destiny. Let me ask you something. When has fear ever given you anything but regret? How many times have you sat on an opportunity because fear told you that you might fail? How many times have you stayed in a toxic relationship, a dead-end job, a place where your soul was suffocating simply because fear convinced you that the unknown was worse? Fear will have you choosing a familiar prison over an unfamiliar freedom. Fear will have you gripping onto something that's already dying instead of stepping into what God is birthing. Have you ever watched a bird teaching its baby how to fly? That baby bird will sit on the edge of the nest, its tiny heart pounding, wings trembling, because it has never known life beyond that nest. That nest is all it's ever known. It feels safe, it feels secure, but then the mother comes and nudges that baby, pushing it closer to the edge. And let me tell you, that baby will resist. It will fight. It will cling to the branch like its life depends on it. Because fear is telling that little bird, you're going to fall. Fear is telling that little bird, you don't know what's out there. Fear is telling that little bird, stay here where it's safe. But the mother knows something the baby doesn't. What looks like a fall is really a flight in disguise. What feels like an end is actually the beginning of something greater. And some of you are just like that baby bird. God is nudging you. God is pushing you. God is telling you, step out, step forward, step through the door I've opened for you. But you're gripping the branch because fear has convinced you that falling is worse than flying. I need somebody to hear me. If you let fear drive your life, you will always stay stuck in the nest when God created you to soar. You will always stay stuck in a chapter that's supposed to be over. God is saying, I have more for you. I have new doors for you. I have new levels for you. But fear will make you miss it. Fear will make you forfeit it. Fear will keep you trapped when freedom is right in front of you. Do you know how many people God has called, but they never walked into their calling because fear shut them down? Do you know how many people were on the edge of a breakthrough, but they backed away because fear told them it was too risky? Fear will have you burying the talent that God gave you. Fear will have you sitting in the boat when Jesus is calling you to walk on the water. Fear will have you standing at the door of your blessing, too afraid to knock. But God didn't give you a spirit of fear. He gave you power, He gave you love, and He gave you a sound mind. Somebody needs to shake fear off today. Somebody needs to say, I will not let fear keep me from my purpose. I will not let fear keep me from my blessing. I will not let fear keep me from what God has for me, because fear will paralyze you. Fear will drain you. Fear will keep you up at night, rehearsing every worst case scenario. Fear will tell you, what if it doesn't work? But faith says, what if it does? Fear will say, what if I fall? But faith says, what if I fly? Fear will say, I'm not qualified, but faith says, if God called me, He's already qualified me. Let me make it plain for you. Some of you are standing in front of a door that God has opened, but you won't step in because fear has wrapped itself around your mind. Some of you have been given an opportunity, but fear is telling you you're not ready. Some of you have been praying for a change, but now that it's here, fear has you hesitating. But I came to tell you, you will never walk into the promise if you keep letting fear hold the key. You will never experience the fullness of what God has for you if you keep letting fear call the shots. Think about David when he stood in front of Goliath. Fear could have kept him in the background, hiding behind the soldiers. Fear could have told him, you're too small, you're too young, you don't have enough experience. But David didn't let fear talk him out of his victory. David didn't let fear make him run. He knew that if God had brought him to the battlefield, then God had already equipped him to win. And somebody in this room needs to know, if God brought you to it, He's already given you everything you need to overcome it. You cannot let fear stop you. You cannot let fear silence you. You cannot let fear make you second guess what God already said, because fear will always be there. But you have to choose faith over fear. You have to choose movement over stagnation. You have to choose obedience over hesitation, because on the other side of fear is your blessing. On the other side of fear is your breakthrough. On the other side of fear is the life you were created for. And I don't know who I'm talking to, but somebody here has been stuck for too long. Somebody here has been waiting for a sign, waiting for a confirmation, waiting for a moment where fear disappears. But let me tell you something. Fear isn't going to disappear. You've got to move in spite of fear. You've got to step forward even when your knees are shaking. You've got to walk through the door even when your hands are trembling, because courage is not the absence of fear. It's moving forward in spite of it. Fear has taken too much from you already. Fear has stolen too many years. Fear has silenced too many dreams. Fear has buried too many callings. But today is the day you tell fear, no more. Today is the day you say, I will not be held hostage to fear any longer. Today is the day you make a decision to step through the door that God has opened, no matter what fear says, no matter what doubt says, no matter what insecurity says. Because what God has for you is too big to be left behind just because you were scared to go after it. Before God opens the door, he prepares the vessel, because the truth is God will never open a door that your character is not ready to handle. Some of you are asking God for elevation, but you haven't built the foundation to sustain it. You're praying for a platform, but you haven't developed the discipline. You're asking for a breakthrough, but you haven't built the prayer life to keep you standing when the storms come. God isn't just interested in blessing you, he's interested in building you. Because if he blesses you before you're spiritually prepared, the blessing will break you. Too many people want the promise without the process. They want the crown without the cross. They want the platform without the preparation. But let me tell you something. Spiritual preparation is the price tag for the doors God is about to open. You can't step into new levels with an old mindset. You can't walk into your destiny carrying the baggage of your past. You can't operate in the anointing God has for you if your spirit is still tied to the things God told you to let go of. Think about Joseph. God gave him a dream of leadership, of power, of influence. But before Joseph ever stepped into he had to endure the pit. He had to survive betrayal. He had to walk through rejection. He had to experience seasons of isolation. Why? Because God wasn't just preparing the position for Joseph, he was preparing Joseph for the position. God was building his character. God was stretching his faith. God was developing his patience. And some of you right now are wondering why God hasn't opened the door yet. But could it be that God is still preparing you? Could it be that God is still strengthening your foundation? Could it be that God is stretching your faith so that when the door opens, you won't crumble under the weight of the blessing? Because let me tell you something, the door is not the destination. The door is an entry point into greater responsibility. The door is an entry point into a higher calling. And if you're not spiritually prepared, what was meant to bless you can crush you. That's why God will put you through seasons where he's pruning you, refining you, and stripping you of everything that's not like him. You're asking God to open the door, but God is saying, I'm opening your heart first. I'm breaking pride. I'm breaking insecurity. I'm breaking the fear of people's opinions. Because when I open this door, you can't afford to carry that into your next season. You got to prepare yourself spiritually. You've got to build your prayer life. You've got to stay rooted in the Word. You've got to cultivate a heart of worship. Because when God opens that door, the enemy will try to attack you on a new level. And if you're not spiritually grounded, the pressure will push you out of position. The criticism will make you shrink. The attacks will make you question your calling. But when your spirit is anchored in God, nothing can shake you. When your mind is renewed in his word, no lie of the enemy can stop you. When your heart is rooted in worship, no weapon formed against you can prosper. Let me make it plain for you. An athlete doesn't wait until game day to start training. A soldier doesn't wait until the battle starts to pick up his armor. And you can't wait until the door opens to start preparing spiritually. Because when the opportunity comes, you won't have time to get ready. You have to already be ready. The strength you need for your next season is built in the secret place. The wisdom you need for your next assignment is found in the quiet moments with God. The discernment you need for the connections and decisions you're about to make is developed in prayer. You want to know why some people step through the door and lose their peace? Because they weren't spiritually prepared. You want to know why some people step into the promise and crumble under pressure? Because they didn't have the character to carry the calling. You want to know why some people get the platform but lose their identity? Because they didn't allow God to do the inner work before they got there. Don't be so focused on the door that you neglect what God is trying to do in you before the door opens. Because when God is getting ready to elevate you, he will first isolate you. He will put you in seasons where you feel hidden, overlooked and forgotten. Not because he's punishing you, but because he's preparing you. He's breaking habits that can't go with you. He's removing people that can't handle where you're going. He's stretching your faith so that when the opportunity comes, you'll be able to stand in confidence. Not in your strength, but in his power. Some of you are frustrated because you feel like the door should have opened by now. But God is saying, I'm building your roots. I'm strengthening your foundation. I'm teaching you how to trust me when nobody is clapping. I'm teaching you how to pray when you feel like nothing is moving. Because when I open this door, it won't just be for your benefit. It will be for my glory. You can't expect to carry a great anointing with a shallow prayer life. You can't expect to lead others if you haven't learned to follow God. You can't expect to walk in authority if you haven't surrendered to obedience. God is not going to give you a platform that your spirit is not ready to protect. So stop rushing the process. Stop trying to force the door open. Stop comparing your journey to others. Because what God is doing in you right now is preparing you to walk in rooms that your gift alone can't keep you in. Some of you are wondering why the opportunity hasn't come yet. But God is asking you, have you built the discipline for the door you're praying for? Have you crucified your flesh? Have you surrendered your ego? Have you learned how to forgive those who hurt you? Have you learned how to keep your heart pure when you're overlooked? Because I'm not just interested in getting you to the door. I'm interested in keeping you there when I open it. So build your spirit. Stay in the secret place. Stay on your knees. Because when God opens the door, you won't just walk through it. You'll walk through it with power, with authority, and with a spirit that's ready to handle the weight of the blessing. Faith is the currency of the kingdom. Faith is what moves the hand of God. And when God opens a door, he's not going to give you all the details. He's not going to show you the full blueprint, and he's not going to give you a 5-year plan. He's simply going to say, step. And it's not going to make sense. It's not going to feel comfortable. It's not going to look like the right timing. But if you wait for everything to be perfect before you move, you'll miss what God is doing in this season. Some of you are stuck right now because you're waiting for clarity. You're waiting for confirmation. You're waiting for the fear to go away. But God is saying, I'm not going to give you clarity. I'm going to give you an opportunity. I'm not going to remove the fear. I'm going to give you the courage to move in spite of it. I'm not going to show you the whole staircase. I'm just going to show you the first step. Faith is not about seeing. It's about believing. Faith is when you step into the unknown, trusting that God is already there. Faith is when you move forward with no evidence other than the word God spoke to you. Faith is when you say, God, I don't understand this, but I trust you. I don't see the full picture, but I trust the painter. I don't know how you're going to make a way, but I know you are the way. Look at Peter. When Jesus called him to walk on water, Peter didn't have a map. He didn't have a safety net. He didn't have a backup plan. All he had was a word from Jesus that said, come. And Peter stepped out of that boat. He stepped out of the familiar. He stepped out of the comfort zone. He stepped out of logic. And as long as he kept his eyes on Jesus, he did what was impossible. Some of you are asking God to do the impossible in your life, but you're unwilling to step out of the boat. You want God to make a way, but you're afraid to take a step. You want the blessing, but you don't want to leave your comfort zone. But let me tell you something. Miracles don't happen in the boat. Miracles happen when you step out. You've been praying for a breakthrough, but God is saying your breakthrough is on the other side of your obedience. You've been asking for a new season, but God is saying your new season is waiting on the other side of your faith. Faith is not just believing that God can do it, it's stepping out as if he already did. Faith is applying for the job before you feel qualified. Faith is starting the business before you have all the resources. Faith is forgiving the person before they apologize. Faith is sowing the seed when your bank account says, you can't afford to, let me make it plain for you. Faith is walking around the walls of Jericho when it looks foolish. Faith is building the ark when there's no sign of rain. Faith is stepping into the Red Sea before the waters part. Faith is moving forward when everyone else is telling you to wait. And let me tell you something, God is not moved by fear. God is not moved by anxiety. God is not moved by doubt. God is moved by faith. You've been waiting on God, but what if God has been waiting on you? What if God already opened the door, but you've been too afraid to walk through it? What if God already released the opportunity, but you've been too busy second-guessing yourself? What if your miracle isn't delayed, it's just on the other side of your fear? Some of you are saying, but what if I fail? And God is saying, what if you fly? Some of you are saying, what if it doesn't work? And God is saying, what if it does? Some of you are saying, I don't feel ready. And God is saying, I didn't ask if you felt ready. I asked if you had faith. God is not calling you to step out because you have it all together. He's not calling you to step out because you have all the answers. He's calling you to step out because he is with you. And if God is with you, no man can stop you. If God is with you, no enemy can block you. If God is with you, no enemy can block you. You keep asking God for confirmation. But sometimes faith looks like moving without confirmation. Sometimes faith looks like walking through the door when you don't know what's on the other side. Sometimes faith looks like showing up when you feel unqualified. Because God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. Think about Abraham. God told him, go to a land and I will show you. God didn't give him a GPS. God didn't give him an itinerary. God simply said, go. And Abraham packed up everything and started walking. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew who he was following. And some of you are asking God for direction, but God is saying, start walking and I will show you the next step. You've been waiting for the conditions to be perfect, but faith doesn't wait for perfect conditions. Faith moves when it doesn't make sense. Faith moves when the money isn't there. Faith moves when the crowd is doubting you. Faith moves when the timing feels off. Because if you only move when it's convenient, that's not faith, that's comfort. Stop letting fear keep you stuck in seasons that God already told you to leave. Stop letting doubt keep you bound to places that God already called you out of. Stop waiting for confirmation when God has already given you a word. Because the door is already open, the opportunity is already there, the favor has already been released. But you will never experience it until you step out. It's time to step out of fear and into faith. Step out of doubt and into destiny. Step out of comfort and into calling. Because God is not going to bless your comfort zone. God is not going to elevate your excuses. God is not going to anoint your hesitation. The blessing is in your obedience. The miracle is in your movement. The breakthrough is in your boldness. So what are you waiting for? God has already spoken. God has already opened the door. God has already made the way. Now all he's waiting on is for you to step out in faith. Your environment is shaping your destiny. The people you surround yourself with are either pushing you toward your purpose or pulling you away from it. The truth is, you cannot walk through the doors God is opening for you while staying connected to people who are comfortable living in closed rooms. Some of you are wondering why you feel stuck. You're wondering why your dreams feel distant, why your vision feels blurry, why your faith feels weak. But the real problem isn't your potential, it's your circle. Because when God is trying to elevate you, he will often shift your environment. He will remove people who can't handle where you're going. He will disconnect you from voices that speak doubt, fear, and negativity. And if you're not careful, you'll start fighting to hold on to relationships that God is trying to release you from. You cannot fly while staying connected to people who are comfortable crawling. You cannot think on a higher level while being surrounded by people who are stuck in small-minded thinking. You cannot build what God has called you to build while being surrounded by people who have no vision for their own lives. Let me make it plain for you. Eagles don't fly with chickens. An eagle was designed to soar above the storm. An eagle was built to fly at a higher altitude, but a chicken is comfortable scratching the ground, stuck in the dirt, surrounded by fences. And some of you are trying to fly like an eagle, but you're surrounded by chickens. You're surrounded by people who don't believe in dreams. You're surrounded by people who settle for mediocrity. You're surrounded by people who are comfortable complaining but never willing to change. God is saying, in this season, I need you to shift your circle. I need you to surround yourself with visionaries. I need you to connect with people who think bigger, pray harder, and believe for more. Because the level of your vision will always be limited by the people you allow to speak into your life. Look at Joseph. God gave him a dream that one day he would lead nations. But the moment he shared that dream with his brothers, they hated him for it. They threw him in a pit and sold him into slavery. Why? Because small-minded people will always hate what they can't understand. People who have no vision for their own lives will always try to kill the vision that God has placed in you. You've been wondering why certain people walked away. You've been wondering why certain friendships fell apart. You've been wondering why God separated you from certain. So what if God was protecting your vision? What if God was removing people who would have talked you out of your destiny? What if God was clearing the room so he could elevate you without the distraction of doubters and naysayers? When God is getting ready to take you to a new level, he will place the right people around you. People who can speak life when you're tired. People who can encourage you when you're weary. People who can challenge you to think bigger, to dream higher, to believe greater. Because sometimes the difference between stepping into your miracle and missing it is who you're connected to. Let me bring this to your daily life. You ever notice how when you're around negative people, your spirit starts to feel heavy? When you're around people who gossip and complain, your energy starts to drop. That's because spirits are transferable. And if you're not careful, you will start adopting the mindset and attitude of the people you're connected to. If you hang around people who are always talking about problems, you'll start living in problems. If you hang around people who are always doubting, you'll start doubting yourself. If you hang around people who are stuck in their past, you'll start feeling trapped in yours. But when you surround yourself with visionaries, people who speak faith, people who dream big, people who refuse to settle, your mindset shifts. Your spirit starts to rise. Your faith starts to grow. You need to be around people who make your vision feel too small, people who challenge you to dream bigger, pray bolder, and believe for the impossible. You need to be around people who aren't intimidated by your growth, but inspired by it. People